Hello and welcome back to the Q&A. Today we've got a whole bunch of questions on loads of different interesting topics. If you want to leave your own, the best place is probably Twitter, but other than that, the YouTube comments or Ask FM will do just fine. Anyway, let's get right into the content with a question from Jack Hardman, who said, which races do you think will have the spotlight on them in terms of Legion? Well, I think we'll see a great Night Elf influence in the game's aesthetics more than any other native race. The Broken Isles are essentially a fallen elf civilization, and also the elves are going to essentially be the main aesthetic of the biggest launch raid tier, which is Suramar Palace. The Naga, of course, are also elven in origin, and you can see that in their aesthetic design as well. Blizzard have talked about how the Suramar raid itself is going to be a large departure from the last few raids, which have been very aesthetically similar. I mean, the main difference was the tint of the iron, essentially. Both in terms of the raids themselves aesthetically, but also in terms of the gear that we're going to get. I think that's definitely good because there's only so many times you can make super chunky horde-style plate look interesting. So hopefully the artists are going to have a bit more room to deliver a great tier as well. I'd also hope that the cloth wearers will get armor that actually looks like it's made of cloth. If they've got a Night Elf look, then I think that's a lot more possible. Demon Hunters are also elven in origin, and I'm pretty sure that only Night Elves and Blood Elves can be Demon Hunters. So overall, we're going to see a lot of elves this time around, and I think that is a great break from the fire and iron orcish look that we've had essentially since, just over halfway through 2013? It certainly has been a while. Next up, I've got a question on Ask FM, which says, do you think Blizzard will introduce better weather effects and physics in Legion to make the world feel more dynamic, e.g. collapsible buildings like in Diablo, wind, rivers, and stuff like that? And also, is the average home PC ready to handle that much? Well, first of all, I would love more environmental effects, even if it only meant them sort of reintroducing the ones that they removed. As for physics-based effects, that's a little bit more tricky. Often they don't really improve gameplay, and with WoW being very much a tab target game, I can't see them really adding a visceral feel to the game's spells. It's not like in Diablo where you hit a button, a thing happens that blows up the building beside it. I think that'll be a little bit less effective in Warcraft. Now, what does work is adding small visual effects, like, say, how the grass parts when you walk over it. Now, that grass thing, well, there's no actual physics going on there, because simulating that using physics would be beyond stupid when you can just fake the effect a lot easier. So, in general, I think immersion effects like that are really great, and I would like more of them to be in the game. Now, I would like it if they would experiment a little bit more with normal mapping and some just basic, shader techniques when it comes to people's armor and things like that. I ended up doing quite a bit of shader pipeline work for a C++ project last year, basically making a custom renderer, and a part of that was learning the OpenGL shader language. Now, using that, I've definitely learned quite a bit about a number of graphical techniques, one of which would be sort of bump mapping, normal mapping, stuff like that. They could use that to essentially up the quality of maybe the texture-only armor pieces, like, say, chests, to look a bit better and more detailed. In case you're not really sure what normal mapping or bump mapping is, well, most modern games use more advanced techniques of the same thing, but essentially, you know the way in many games, if you look at a wall, it looks 3D, but if you look at it side-on, it turns out that 3D is actually just a visual trick? Essentially, it's getting that effect. But anyway, as for the power of PCs, well, adding new features doesn't automatically mean old machines can't run the game. The new lighting effects in 6.1 are a lot more expensive, but they are also completely optional. They can apply more advanced effects, so I don't think there's really much of an excuse. The same actually goes for texture quality. I think it's kind of mind-boggling how some things like, say, armor texture quality are as low as they are on many high-end systems, because those systems can absolutely handle stuff that's way higher than that, and of course, artists do not work at 256 by 256. They work at far higher resolutions, so that stuff is available to Blizzard. Next up, I've got a question on Twitter from Death Chicken Wing, who said, what role do you think Azshara will have in Legion? So, I think Azshara might not appear much in Legion, as far as we know anyway. The character that we'll be mainly dealing with is Tide Mistress Athesha, or something like that. Essentially, she is leading Naga forces in their invasion of the Isles under orders from Azshara, which is pretty much what you'd expect. That might be in preparation for her basically appearing in a patch, or it could be foreshadowing for a future expansion. If Azshara appears, then it's likely she is allied with the Legion to try to deal with us. If she waits until maybe, a like a later on expansion with the old gods, then it's more likely she is, of course, staying with her old god affiliation and will be a principal villain in the expansion that is dealing with N'Zoth. Of course, the old gods do love their chaos, so her appearing in Legion might not indicate a fracturing of an allegiance between her and the old gods. Again, though, that's all speculation. We will be dealing with the Naga, we will probably hear from Azshara. I'm not really that sure that we're actually going to see much of her, though. Next, I've got a question from Bruce Sartre Legacy on Twitter, who said, what made you start your YouTube channel? That's a good question. So, I wanted to be better at StarCraft 2, and I decided to stream it daily. That lasted for 2 days, because I basically had been playing WoW for a few months at that stage. Well, a few months since I took a break after I came back for the MOP launch for maybe like a week, but then I just got busy with university. So prior to that, I quit during Dragon Soul. But anyway, I got that itch to make a WoW video, and that's how WoW Daily was born. It's kind of funny looking back at things. That show lasted over 250 episodes and was the bread and butter of the channel for around a year. I suppose they're pretty shit videos in comparison to what I do now, but yeah, it's weird thinking about that. So essentially, I was doing StarCraft stuff. I then decided I wanted to do a few WoW videos. That basically just caught on, and it became a thing. Really soon after starting those Warcraft videos, I just decided to run the channel like a business, under the logic that if I didn't take it seriously now, it would never get to the point where it would be sane to actually treat it seriously. So that mindset ended up working out, and about 3 years later, I'm essentially here. Well, that really is the reason why I started the YouTube channel. It was basically not really planned to be this. Definitely glad it turned out to be this, though, so yeah, it all worked out pretty well. Next, I've got a question from Dr. Salt on YouTube, who said, basically, is WoW being an older game holding up to the newer stuff? Now, that is a bit of a tricky thing, because for an MMO to be successful, they need to be the whole package. Back in 2004, the competition was very different, and in many ways, Blizzard did offer the complete package. Looking at some of today's MMOs, they each do things brilliantly, but they neglect other things. For example, the Old Republic has best-in-genre storytelling, but it doesn't really innovate in terms of combat, and it's got a few other issues as well. WildStar has poor storytelling, but, in my opinion, has some amazing combat. Overall, I suppose, yeah, many parts of WoW's design are maybe a bit outdated, and some of their newer designs are kind of misguided, but on the whole, I guess they still kind of offer a decently rounded and complete package. Now, with Warlords of Draenor, I think that's where they really fouled that idea, and they didn't really deliver for the casual player base in terms of content, and that, of course, was met with a ginormous and unprecedented subscriber loss. Still, in general, I think WoW's main strength has been that it's just been solid and well-rounded, whereas, historically, most of the other MMOs, they've done one or two things well, but they've had other glaring problems. So assuming WoW would perhaps fix up its starting experience in terms of difficulty and abilities and do a few other things and ensure that Legion is a good expansion, then I think it will continue to offer that well-rounded package that people just find to be an overall satisfying experience that basically just keeps them held to the game and doesn't result in them bouncing off a month after they decide to subscribe. Next, I've got a question on Twitter from Andrija, who said, what do you think will happen with Magi and the Council, as it was said that he could reforge Ashbringer? Well, first of all, I don't think Ashbringer is actually shattered, though I suppose in the Broken Shore that could happen. But anyway, Magi is currently a block of diamond. There's not really a great deal that guy can do, really for anyone. As for the Council itself, it seems like the three clans are pretty much on decent terms currently, as far as I know with the lore. I don't see there being much lore going on really surrounding the dwarves, honestly. I think it's possible that paladins might visit Magni's Forge as a part of their quest, or maybe like thawing him out of his diamond crystal will be a thing that they do. But overall, I don't think it's going to be a major plot point, and there's every chance we'll just pick up the Ashbringer from Tyrion, do a small quest, and really that'll be that. Though if you've never been down to Old Ironforge, then I really recommend checking it out because it's easily one of the cooler parts of the game. Next, I've got a question on YouTube from Riley, who essentially just asked, why the hell did they revamp BFD and RFD with Warlords of Draenor and not really make them heroic or do that much at all? And yeah, I decided to take up this question because it really doesn't make a lot of sense. It's as if a few interns just took it on as a weekend project, really random in the wider scope of things. In terms of the work that would be needed, neither of those were particularly intensive. They didn't require many art assets to be made. As for why, I don't really know. They were pretty random. I wouldn't mind a heroic mode, or something like that, and maybe if they were to do time walking of vanilla dungeons, they are ones that would be featured because they've kind of been updated a little bit. But yeah, completely random. I have no idea why. Finally, I'm going to close off this video with a question on Ask FM, which is essentially asking if I'll be doing more first impressions videos and kind of what I'm thinking of doing. The answer to that is yes. I've been surprised at how well those videos have done from a kind of performance perspective in terms of the amount of views and interest that they've got. That's definitely very nice to see. So I'm probably going to continue looking at other MMOs. When Heart of Thorns or the thingy for Guild Wars 2 comes out, I'll probably do that. I would really like to do first impression videos on Battlefront, Rainbow Six Siege, and Halo 5, and also Knights of the Old Republic, or Knights of the Fallen, which is the expansion for Knights of the Old Republic. Maybe things that are sort of not MMOs, they would be bonus videos in addition to the regular kind of schedule of content, but certainly I will be doing more first impressions videos. I enjoy doing them quite a lot, actually, and it's always good to be able to play more games. Plus, there really is not that much going on with World of Warcraft at the minute, and if World of Warcraft does do another Warlords of Draenor, I don't want to be stuck there and sort of clinging onto a game that's nosediving itself into the ground. Hopefully that won't happen, though. Obviously I want Legion to be very good, and I do think there is a very high chance that the mistakes of Warlords of Draenor will not be repeated. But yes, to answer that question, there will be more first impressions videos. I will eventually probably expand out to more than just other MMO things. MMO things are the main focus, and games that are similar to that, but I do enjoy playing lots of other games, such as Rainbow Six Siege. I had a lot of fun during its beta, and based on how much I like Halo 4, I'm hoping Halo 5 will be quite good. Anyway, that is pretty much it for today's Q&A. As always, you can leave questions down in the YouTube comments, or if you want probably a higher chance of me noticing it, then just drop it to me on Twitter, and I will add that to my document pretty much instantly. Twitter's a really good place to get hold of me, even if it's not for the Q&A, you just want to chat or something. So that's it for the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.